Well, hey, everybody, getting ready to record Mike in the Midwest number 192 for this week. So here we go. Here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 192 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast. You can find me on all the socials at Be Our Guest Mike, but mostly lately, you can find me over on the awesome Be Our Guest podcast Clubhouse, which is our Discord channel, which you can find at beourguestpodcast.com/Discord. So come on over, hang out in the clubhouse. It's open 24/7. I like to think of it now as like our little personal diner. You can swing in every morning with your cup of coffee to check out what everybody else is posting. Right now, hashtag Scotty G is down at Walt Disney World. Right now, he's at Epcot as we speak, posting pictures from Flower and Garden. He's having all the snacks. He's doing it upright. Had a little Maya grill last night. He's taking us on a virtual trip around Coronado Springs. So if you want to check in with him, we have a lot of folks who are posting all the cruises that they've booked over the past week with their countdowns in the cruise sub forum. We have folks talking about what's going on in their corner of the world over there on the Discord. We have so much fun on the Discord, just meeting and greeting and talking about what we're doing over the weekend. So please, it's our little community between shows. So come on over again, beourguestpodcast.com/Discord. Be a part of the Be Our Guest Podcast Clubhouse. We'd love to have you over there. And guess what? We have a secret one just for you guys, just for the patrons of the show. You can use that as well. The details are right here at Be Our Guest or at patreon.com/Be Our Guest Podcast. But get in on the big one where everybody is. Hey, what's up, Isabel up in Chicago? Glad to have you listening here live on YouTube as we record here on a Sunday afternoon. Say hi to my daughter who's up in Chicago as well. We are going to be talking about a coach this afternoon on the main topic for today. But what's going on here around the Be Our Guest Podcast Studios this week? That's kind of how I always lead off the show. This past week, wildly crazy with the release of the 2025 summer schedules for the Disney Cruise Line. This year, because first of all, when they release these in chunks, Disney Cruise Line does, as you guys might know with Disney Cruise Line, they do them basically kind of seasonally. They release chunks instead of like Walt Disney World does 2025 release, and they release most of that year at once. Disney Cruise Line will release summer 2025, then they'll do fall 2025, then they'll do like winter 2025 and so forth, and then that's when you can book 3-4 months at a time. Well, summer is always the busiest one of all, obviously, because most families can travel over the summer. Kids are out of school, teachers can travel and so forth. But this year, it was kind of the perfect storm, right? You had not only summer, we've had pent up demand because of a lot of folks haven't traveled a lot because of the COVID and stuff, and we're really coming out of that hot and heavy. But more importantly, I think for Disney fans, we have the Disney Treasure that is now available to sail in 2025, which is going to be a great ship on the 7-night Caribbean sailings. But also, we have a new private island in Lighthouse Point, and we have a lot of cruises that go both to Castaway Cay and Lighthouse Point. So it was like the perfect storm this past week. So I just want to thank everybody who booked a cruise with me over at the Magic for Less. I'm loving giving out those onboard credits that you'll have waiting for you in your account when you sail in 2025. Thank you for that support. If you haven't, just go to magicforless.com. And thanks for all your patience, because this week was crazy. If you put in a quote and you had to wait, 6, 8, 10 hours for me to get back to you, thank you for your patience. I try to go as fast as I can, but I am a one-man show, and I do go as fast as I can. I shut everything else down. But I appreciate your support. Just wanted to say that it was a crazy week, but it was a successful week. I think everybody got the staterooms they're looking for, the categories they're looking for. In the end, it's good because I book a lot of cruises with Disney Cruise Line. I have a great relationship with the booking agents at Disney Cruise Line because I'm on the phones with them daily. I consider them my coworkers. I call Disney Cruise Line every single day. So the thing is, when I call in, they say, "Hey, Mike," before I even say anything to them. They have caller ID. So they know it. It's me, and we have conversations. I know that Frankie always goes to spring training games for the Boston Red Sox this time of year. I know that Kat, she's a big Live PD fan. Now she's on Patrol Live on Reel, so we talk about that every time I call. Goldie, I always talk to her about a few things. They're my friends. So the thing is, it's good for all of us, right? Because I can get a lot of things done for my guests. So I love that because it makes me happy because I always want to make you happy. I'm super competitive and I want my guests to be the happiest guests on the internet and the happiest guests on the cruise ships when you're sailing with your family. I want you to say, man, I had the best cruise ever. When you go to Walt Disney World, I want you to say, this is the best vacation ever. Disneyland, whatever you do. I just want you to have the best time ever because we work hard all year. I mean, I'm in the same boat as you guys, right? I work super hard every single day. I work 7 days a week. That's the thing about being a travel agent is you don't get a day off because if I don't do my job, nobody does it. I don't complain, but I mean, this is how it is. I work every day except usually I kind of slow down on Christmas Day. And when I'm on my vacation, somebody else covers for me, but otherwise I work every day and I love what I do, but I know how hard I work. So when I am on vacation, I want it to be awesome. I work hard every day so that I can have awesome vacations. And I know that's the exact same way for you. So I want to make sure that when you are stepping away from whatever you do, teaching, being a police officer, being a nurse, whatever maybe blue collar job you have out there where it's super stressful and physical, I want you to be able to chill and not have to worry about anything and get exactly what you're looking for. So that makes me happy when we can do that for you. Anyway, crazy week. Thanks for your patience. And that's what's going on around here. Spring break for both Pam and Mallory this week coming up. So everybody is home this week and hopefully Paige can make it home for Easter next weekend. I've tried to bribe her. I called or I texted her today and said, if you need help, I'll even help you pay for a plane ticket so you can just come home for the weekend. I mean, it's midway to St. Louis. It's a cheap flight. I just want to see, I want to have a whole family home at the Easter table next Sunday. That's kind of the dream of a dad, right? I want her to make it, even if it means flying home Saturday, flying home late Sunday night, to be back to work on Monday, flying home early Monday morning, whatever it takes. I told her, if you need me to send you a couple $100 to buy a plane ticket to fly home for 36 hours, I will do that. I will make it happen somehow. Because I just want both girls at that Easter table. That's important to me at this point in my life. I'll just forego something over the next month. Maybe we just won't go out to eat a couple weekends or something, and we'll get to enjoy Easter together. That's just one of those things. I want that to happen. So hopefully that does happen next Sunday. I just hope she can get off work for just enough time that she can make it home for Easter. That's super important. Anyway, so that's what's happening around here. I don't know what's going on with you, but I got to tell you this. You guys like ice cream, because last week the show was all about ice cream memories. And so sometimes we get feedback, sometimes we don't. And I recorded this one early. I recorded this show on Sunday and I'm doing it again on Sunday because again, I'm anticipating another busy week because last week was busy and I'm still kind of in that mode. It's still really, really busy. So I'm doing this one on Sunday as well. I looked at the feedback today. Oh, man, do we have a lot of feedback about ice cream memories. So let's jump in. So I have time to talk about my main topic, which is Coach Ron, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. So Deanna says, thank you for being here, Deanna, by the way. This episode brought up a lot of ice cream memories. First, being when I was a kid in my 90s, my grandparents made homemade chocolate ice cream every 4th of July. I remember the adults just losing their minds about the process of making the ice cream and then about how good it was. I think it was their own ice cream memories from being kids in the 60s and before. As a millennial, I was always thinking, not sure what all the fuss is for. It tastes like Bluebell and you could just buy it at the store. Another revolves around the Dairy Queen in a small town. There was one right across from my school in 5th grade. And one day my mom let me and my friends walk across the street after school and get ice cream. And she picked us up a few minutes after. I'm sure she was waiting in the parking lot the whole time. But we felt very independent. Another memory of being a kid would be going to Sonic and splitting our one milkshake between my parents and me and my sister. We talk about that one a lot to remember how frugal our dad was. Shout out to your dad. Frugal dads rock. No, I get it though about I remember my parents would let us like go to the library, which was right kind of across from, it was called Florissant Road, which was like it was a 4-lane road, but it wasn't super busy. But it was like the biggest deal when we got to go to the library by ourselves. But I bet you my mom was like sitting across the street now to think back at it. But I didn't realize it. But now you say I bet she was totally. But I mean, we felt like we were big, grown ups. Anyway, she says, and finally, an ice cream memory from like 2 days ago. We got 5 small melts from Brahms, and the total was $14.05. I was shocked how cheap. Brahms standing strong in the face of inflation, apparently. I'm telling you, did I not say this 17 times already on this show? We went to that Brahms in Springfield, Missouri. I'm wearing my Bucky shirt that I got down there too, by the way, today. Um, my wife and I got 2 double dip cones, and they were huge scoops, cones at Brahms when we were down there for the cheerleading competition like 3 weekends ago. $5.38 total for 2 cones. I mean, you go to Dairy Queen and it's like $6 for your one ice cream. I seriously thought she rung it up wrong. We went back the next night and it was the same price. So I was like, that must be how much it really is. Yeah, you're right. Brahms is fighting inflation in a big way. Thank you for the great memory, Deanna. Thank you for those. You brought up something, Deanna. My great grandparents, because I've told you this on the show many times. I spent some time with my great grandparents in Alton, Illinois, a lot growing up. And on the 4th of July, no, did you talk about 4th of July? We'd spend a couple 4th of Julys over there because they had a big backyard. We made, I want to say we made homemade ice cream too in this like wooden bucket thing. And all I remember is like you put stuff in the middle of it, but we had to keep adding, I think it was like rock salt. I haven't done this since I was real little, and maybe I'll have to research this. But I think we had to keep adding rock salt to the outside of the wooden bucket and then like stirring it on the inside super hard a lot. I mean, it was a ton of work. And the ice cream, I don't think it was that great. It wasn't creamy. It was more like chunky. Maybe we didn't make it right. But I just remember like rock salt was an ingredient we kept putting in there as a kid. I think it was rock salt, but maybe it wasn't because rock salt would melt ice. I don't know. Back me up if you guys know. And by the way, Isabel says they're actually heading to get ice cream before hitting the city. Vegan creameries are few and far between. Her ice cream is $12 by itself. See, I'm telling you. Shout out Isabel who's tuned in live. All right, Ryan Kennedy says, "Hey Mike, when you mentioned your wife commenting on how happy you were interacting on the forums on the Discord, it brought up the memory of perhaps the greatest week of my life. This is going to start out sounding a bit insensitive, so bear with me." Okay, we can. You may remember the unfortunate event from Buffalo and the Cincinnati game in 2023 in which Damar Hamlin required emergency attention on the field, ultimately resulting in the suspension of the game that night. While fortunately Damar Hamlin recovered over the next year, that game was never played to completion. I do remember that night because that was Mallory's birthday. It was on January 2nd, and we were on the way home from her birthday dinner when it happened because we were listening live on the radio. And I knew something was bad just from because we weren't watching, we were listening. You could hear it in the voices of the announcers. They were scared, but we were on our way, and the restaurant was only 5 minutes from our house. Anyway, let's see. Now in my fantasy football league, the person who finishes in last place is forced to go to open mic night at the local comedy club and perform for 5 minutes as a penalty for finishing last. Subsequently, the person who was ranked last at the time was in that position by less than a point and had 2 players that were in that game. The text thread for my fantasy football league, which is now centered around the argument between the last 2 ranked players regarding the potential final standings, was filled a previously unmatched cruel wit among the participants and led my wife to tell me I was enjoying myself way too much reading and responding to that text thread. Anyways, not too much to do with your episode, but I thank you for the trip down memory lane, which makes me smile even now. If I can ever find the backup code that will allow me to sign back into Discord, I'll check out the BOGP forums. Ryan, you got to get over there. It's awesome. And I get what you're saying, because here's the deal with fantasy football and fantasy sports, but mostly football. It's less about and I don't play it anymore because I used to play it so much. Like when I was a young teacher, I had a bunch of friends that I played just a ton of leagues all at once. And I got so into it that it took the fun out of the games. It was seriously like another job for me. I was so serious that I was just like constantly doing this. So I've kind of given up on fantasy football over the last decade. But it's not so much about the football with fantasy football. It's more about ribbing your buddies. You just want to mess with your buddies. Like it's all about just jonesing on your buddies and seeing your buddies fail and that kind of stuff. You're right. It's more about the punishments and the collecting $50 from your buddies than the actual winning and losing. I get it. No, I totally get it, Ryan. So good memory. John Luther says, I've only had Dairy Queen 1 or 2 times myself. I've had it twice this weekend. There weren't any near where I grew up, and even now, the only one nearby is seasonally open for about 5 months a year. There are too many ice cream memories to count. My earliest ice cream memory, I was about 5. I took the first lick off an ice cream cone at Friendly's, only to have it fall off into the parking lot. See, I've never had Friendly's. There were tears, but they gave us another one. My favorite ice cream is Danielle's Choice from a restaurant about 45 minutes away near where I used to live. Imagine the No Way Jose, but instead with a peanut butter cup ice cream and marshmallows instead of whipped cream. It's a long drive for ice cream, but we get out there a few times a year. I'll post a picture on the Discord server, and John did, and it looks incredible. So go over and check it out. It is in there. Yes. And John, yes. Now I've heard of Friendly's. Friendly's. What have we? I don't know that we have those in St. Louis, but where have I seen them? I've been in a town that has a Friendly's, but I don't think I've had Friendly's. And I've never heard of Danielle's Choice. And that's why I love this, though, because we're all from different places. And I love hearing about we're not different cultures, but different backgrounds. And Jody Benning, she's in Cincinnati. So I don't know if there's Skyline ice cream, but let's hear it. She says, ice cream. Yes, I'm here for it. Anyway, Cincinnati is famous for I guess it's Grater's ice cream, which has chocolate chips that are the size of a small country and are absolutely delicious. It started in 1870, and they still make their ice cream in French pots. It's not a stop in Cincinnati without Grater's. I also love the soft serve custard stand on the west side called Putz, which opened in 1938. This small place has a remarkable story. The I-74 Expressway and its right-of-way was planned to come within 3 feet of the shop. Most people would have just accepted the fact, figuring you can't fight the federal government, but not the owner, Lil Earhart. She wrote a letter to President Nixon on September 9th, 1971, explaining how Putzes supported 2 entire families and that the planned right-of-way line would ruin their business. Believe it or not, Lil received a letter back from the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Administration, dated October 26, saying that a review of construction plans indicated that the line and fence might be able to be moved back another 9 feet. Eventually, the plans were changed in a number of big shots, but the State Highway Department came to Putzes and asked, who in the heck do you know that could get the federal government to move the interstate? It's that good that they moved a highway to keep it open. Okay. If there's custard that good, they're going to move an interstate. I got to check this out. And I love that story. This lady had spunk. I love this. And by the way, I got to get up. So I forgot one story from the first one from Deanna's. Bluebell is just coming to St. Louis. It just came to St. Louis, like to buy at the grocery store in the last month. And they have introduced ooey gooey butter cake ice cream in tubs that you can buy at the grocery store, limited time only. That's what they used to have at Ample Hills on the boardwalk. And we now have some. We just bought it today at the grocery store. It is sitting in my freezer. So, yes, ice cream memories living in my freezer right now. Thank you, Jody. And Liana says, thank you for being here, Liana. My Graham used to take me for ice cream often. We'd usually go to Anderson's frozen custard. It's all homemade ice cream and custard, and it's wonderful. My kids love it when my husband and I take them there for dinner and ice cream. They opened in 1946, and they're still going strong. If you're ever in the Buffalo, New York area, definitely try them. We have many ice cream places around, but back in the 1980s, we had a place called the Soda Bar. It was pink, and it had a couple of levels with white chairs and tables. And it also had a bar with stools you could sit at, and it looked so fancy in my 7-year-old mind. It felt special when she'd take me there for my chocolate ice cream with rainbow sprinkles. They've been closed for some time, but recently an ice cream shop reopened there and tried to pay tribute to the old soda bar. The name changed to Cookies and Cream, but it still brings me back to my 7-year-old self. Thanks for always bringing back wonderful memories with your podcast. Leanna, thank you. This brings back great memories for me because you know what this brings me back to? And these places are gone, but my grandparents used to take me, my grandma and grandpa, at the corner of Interstate 270 and Lindbergh Boulevard in Florissant, Missouri, not far from their house. And you guys, I guarantee everybody had one of these probably near them. If you're my age, we used to go to dinner at Howard Johnson's. And did Howard, one of the things I think is like restaurants that were restaurants and had ice cream, right? Because you mentioned that in this, Liana, that this place had dinner and ice cream, like Brahms. Brahms has food. I've only been there that one time a couple weeks ago, but they had like food and ice cream. I'm intrigued by places that have like good food and ice cream, like a dairy and an ice in a restaurant. My grandparents would take us to, and I think one of the things I loved about the Howard Johnson's is like there was a hotel attached to it, but it was the architecture. I love the look of the Howard Johnson, like the triangular and the colors, like the blue and the orange. And you would go in there and they had all those flavors of the ice cream. And you could also we'd get dinner there, but you'd always finish with ice cream. But we didn't go there very often. We went there maybe probably 4 or 5 times in my whole life when I was a kid, but it was just special. Like grandma and grandpa pick us up on a Saturday night. They had a Buick. We get in their Buick, I think Buick like Regal or something. We'd get in the Buick Regal and go down, and the putt-putt was right behind it. And my grandpa knew the owners of the putt-putt, so we could always play putt-putt for free. So we'd go to the Howard Johnson and have dinner. I don't even know what we got to eat, probably hamburger and fries, and get ice cream, play putt. I mean, you were living life. You could not get any better than that. But yeah, I love the look of a Howard Johnson's. How many people ate at Howard Johnson's? Let me know next week. Be Our Guest Podcast or patreon.com/Be Our Guest Podcast. There's a few more here. Dennis says, my favorite ice cream as a kid has always been Baskin Robbins. The closest location wasn't particularly close to our house, so it was always a special treat when we could go get it. My favorite flavor was mint chocolate chip, but at some point it became Jamocha almond fudge. We have one that's pretty close to us now, but we always forget about it because it's like over on the next, it's over in the next town. And ours is also a Dunkin' Donuts. It's like split down the middle. But man, what a good combo. Why don't we go there more? I need to go. And mine's like, I think it's called Gold Ribbon something. It's got like caramel, chocolate, and vanilla or something. Oh man, you guys are killing me now. And I have Tiger Stripe ice cream in the freezer, plus that gooey gooey butter cake in the freezer. I don't need to go anywhere. I have ice cream in the house. Oh man, this is making me so hungry. Anyway, my favorite memories of ice cream as a kid came from watching my grandfather make it whenever he visited. Grandpa didn't talk much. He was usually content to just enjoy the conversation everyone else was having. However, when we visited them in Canton, Missouri, he would always do 2 things: make rotisserie barbecue chicken and homemade ice cream. Both were all-day processes, but they were always worth it. Dennis makes barbecue. I bet Dennis watched Grandpa pretty much. I love hearing this because I get so much of my habits out of my grandpa and my dad. And I could see Dennis right there watching Grandpa up there in Canton, Missouri. I love that. Dennis, thanks for sharing that great memory. Len says, when I was young, long ago, our family would go to the Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor. It originated on the West Coast and grew to be a nationwide chain. They gave kids free sundaes on their birthday, and it had a large ice cream treat called the Pig Trow, which was basically 2 banana split sundaes. Our current favorite on the East Coast is called Rita's. They sell frozen custard and flavored Italian ice. They have a blizzard type offering called the Blendini. The one I had last night was cake batter, frozen custard, vanilla ice, and cookie dough. I was very happy with that combination, Len. I would be very happy too. Oh my gosh, you guys are killing me. It's so good. 2 more. Trisha says, I love the photo wall idea. Yes. I'm looking at, I love it because your guys' pictures pop up every now and then. I seriously have so many selfies with so many of you guys, and I'll just be in here working like right now, and I'll see a picture of you guys, just because I have 2,500 different snapshots of the history of the show. And I'll just be like, oh, I remember that picture from 2011, and it's so fun just from a race or just from a meetup or just in the park. It just makes me happy. I might steal that idea for our family Disney trips. I was excited to hear you talk about Fitz's. We visited there this past year. Oh my gosh. Okay. I didn't talk about Fitz's. I talked about Fritz's with an R. That's a common mistake in St. Louis. Fritz's is a frozen custard place. Fitz's without the R, it's FITZ, is a root beer place. So St. Louis is famous for Fitz's. It's like St. Louis, the city of St. Louis, is more famous for Fitz's. It's a root beer place that bottles their own root beer, and it's really, really good. That's like known around the United States. That's like a St. Louis thing. Like you would know St. Louis for is Fitz's root beer. It's in all the stores and it's very, very. Fritz's is more like if you're from St. Louis, you know about Fritz's frozen custard. So they're two different things. But you had the thing like a tourist would go to is Fitz's root beer, and it is rocking good, but they don't have ice cream. Let's see. Yeah, she says we still have some of the bottled soda in our fridge. Yes, I love their diet root beer. It is so good. Let's see. We have a local place, Kilty, a couple miles from our home. It's a drive up there, and the servers come to your car. It's like a frozen moment in history. As a kid, I remember that McDonald's had soft serve machine with a ribbon of color. I don't remember that. There were several flavors. Pink was bubblegum, green was sour apple, blue was raspberry, etc. It was short-lived but cheap, so affordable for kids who rode their bikes there. Also, I remember is ice cream machines at McDonald's. They're always broken now, but when I was a kid, you could get ice cream. This is totally off topic, but do you remember when McDonald's had the cookies when we were kids? And I'm not talking about the McDonald Land cookies like the trefoils, like just the vanilla cookies. I'm talking back in the day, McDonald's had chocolate chip cookies in the boxes. Those ones that McDonald's had, like when I was like 10, that were chocolate chips. Oh, they're like Chips Ahoy. They were so good. Last comment. I'm telling you what, if I ever need comments, I'm going back to ice cream. Andrea says, I have vivid memories of going to Carvel as a kid and being served ice cream in a cup that was eaten with a flat wooden paddle-like spoon. Oh my gosh. Those spoons give me like goosebumps. I have a texture thing because you would get those, right? With those little, like when you went to school, got the cheap ice cream in the little tub, the little mini tub, and they give you a little wooden spoon. Oh, I hate those things. Oh my gosh. That just gave me goosebumps. The small size of the spoon forced me to slow down and savor my treat. The wooden spoon had a taste, but I never minded it. Oh, I did. Oh, it gives me goosebumps. Oh, I love that memory, Andrea. That just popped into my brain and just I got a chill down my spine. Oh my gosh. Okay. Speaking of Carvel, I follow them on social media, on Twitter, and apparently they made those kind of like ice cream cakes from like the 70s that maybe I'm sure I think I had one of these or two of these at like birthdays when I was a kid. And so, because I follow a lot of like retro podcasts and a lot of retro accounts on social media, and somebody posted about it. And I'm like, I had like at Easter one time, we had an Easter bunny cake. And I think it was like an ice cream cake, and it was a Carvel, or I don't know how you pronounce it, but Carvel. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to follow that because I got to figure out how to get that. But I don't know that they have those here in St. Louis. But man, that was a blast from the past because I know I had something that looked exactly like that when I was a kid. So Andrea, thanks for the memory. So if you have a memory and you guys did this week, and I love you for coming through like this because you made my day, patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. All right. Today's topic. This past weekend, obviously, a lot of us have been watching the NCAA basketball tournament, right? Women's playing, men's are playing. Everybody's trying to make it to the Final Four. Everybody's got their brackets in their offices or their friends. Everybody's doing that. Actually, I don't fill out a bracket. I know you might be shocked by that, right? Just like I don't do fantasy football, because I talked about this earlier. When I do brackets or when I do fantasy football, it kind of ruins the games for me because instead of enjoying the game for the game, I get stressed about my bracket being busted. So I just stopped doing it. I just like to enjoy it for what it is. Pam has 3 brackets, and I kind of helped her with hers. So I just asked her how she's doing. And if she wins the money, good. If she doesn't, who cares? So, but here's the thing. There's this one commercial that's been airing by Dick's Sporting Goods. And I like this commercial because it talks about how sports can change lives. And it's got this kind of dramatic music in the background. It shows, a kid, I think it's a kid with like Down syndrome coming to bat in a town. It talks about how fields change towns. And, it shows a girl that you could tell she was like a walk-on athlete, and she's signed in the locker room, and you could tell that she's being offered a scholarship after probably her first year, and she's getting a paper, and she's going crazy because it's like a walk-on's getting a scholarship. It's all that. And there's like a coach coming in and celebrating with his team after after like you could tell like an upset win. Coaches change futures and all that. It's got all these, lines. You'll see that if you watch basketball all throughout this weekend or next weekend, you'll see this commercial. And it got me thinking about, because I've been an athlete my whole life. I've been in team sports. I've been on both sides. I've coached, and I've, obviously been coached more than I have coached. And I was thinking about the impact coaches. I'm 50 years old, and a good coach can have an impact on you your whole life. And I was thinking back to, what coach has really impacted me. And you'd be shocked because I've had baseball coaches, I've had football coaches, I've had hockey coaches, I've had basketball coaches, and I'll talk about more. But as I reflected on this over the past couple of days, I wanted to talk about Coach Ron. And you might be shocked to know why I wanted to give a shout out to Coach Ron on an episode here. Ron was my speed skating coach when I was an inline speed skater, and even before that, before even inlines were a thing in the 90s. I started on the roller skating speed skating team when I was about 7 years old. So probably in around 1980. I've said it here on the podcast. My next door neighbors, Ron and his wife Wanda, they owned the skating rink in our town. So we lived next door to the people that owned the skating rink, Ron and his wife Wanda. So they were good friends with us. They were neighbors, next door neighbors. They were good friends with my parents, and they babysat myself and my younger sister, who's 4 years younger. So when Wanda would babysit us during the day, we would go up to the skating rink. She'd work, fiddle around in the rink, do the books, whatever. So she just turned the lights on. We would skate. Nobody else would be in the rink. And that's what we do kind of all day. She gives quarters for the video games, stuff like that. But anyway, my first job was to work there. Like 14 years old, I started DJing there, just working and so forth. But I always speed skated there from the time I, started skating when I was like 6, 7. I was on the speed skating team because speed skating was a thing back then in like the late 70s, early 80s. And we had a pretty large speed skating team. We traveled around Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, and skate against other skating rinks. And the thing about Ron, though, he was the owner, but he was also a national champion roller skater, speed skater, and he was a national champion roller hockey player. He was basically, and I'm not exaggerating here, his name is hanging at the Enterprise Center where the St. Louis Blues play, downtown St. Louis. He's in the St. Louis Hockey Hall of Fame because he basically started roller hockey not only in St. Louis, but in North America. He's known around the United States as probably the most talented roller hockey player ever to play roller hockey back in the 80s and 70s. His team, they had a team back then because, it wasn't a hugely popular sport. It was a very niche and underground sport in the 70s and 80s, roller hockey, because it was all on quads. This is before it really got big with inlines in the 90s. But it was hosted, the Nationals every year were in St. Louis at a roller skating rink on the other side of town called Aloha, because I had to go to it every year with Ron's wife because they played in it. And it went on for like a week long, this big tournament. But his team won it every year, the St. Louis Hawkeyes. And anyway, he was not only he was the best roller hockey player in the country. And he's my dad's age. He a little bit younger, but he was also he also won nationals every year in speed skating. He was the fastest speed skater in his age division as far as speed skating. So he was an amazingly talented roller skater, hockey and speed skating. But the thing is, he's super humble. you would never know this. He owned the skating rink. He was the nicest guy. He was obviously also my boss. He was my first boss. And so he was my coach and he was my boss. And I spent more time with him from the time I was like 14 till the time I was like through college. I probably spent more time with Ron than I did with my family because I worked at the skating rink all the time. Because if I wasn't working, I was practicing. Because in the 90s, especially like from like 90, from like right after high school, like 92 to like 2000, I was practicing up there probably 5 or 6 days a week and 2 or 3 times a day I would practice. No kidding. I was because I was nationally ranked and I was trying to make there's rumors it was going to be an Olympic sport. So I want to make the Olympic team if it went to the Olympics. So I was really, really practicing hard and he was coaching me. So the thing was, I knew that I had something good and that Ron he'd been there. He was a multi-time national champion. And I love that he isn't a screamer. He wasn't anybody that was a yeller. He was very understated, but he had been there. He always won. Like he was a winner, but he was humble. And coaches do change lives. And the one thing I wanted to point out was I remember one day, one of the things we always did in practice, because we practice at least, we'd have a formal team practice with the whole team. And there's about 40 or 50 of us on the whole team. But then some of us, I mean, I had a key to the rink so I could practice whenever I wanted. But we'd have a formal team practice on Tuesdays, Fridays, and then one other kind of floating day. And at the team practices, we do a 100-lap race, like a 100-lap drill, which was a 10K, which was, so 6.2 miles. But you didn't think about it in miles. It was a 100-lap race, a 100-lap drill. And it was a 100-meter track. So I just remember one day, because again, I was I was just out of I was in college, so I just remember one day I wasn't feeling it. I was about 30 some laps into the race and I just wanted to quit. And I think I did quit. And then the next day we're doing the drill again to the next practice and I quit again. And I just remember Ron got mad. And Ron really didn't usually get mad because he would skate because he was still skating. He was a coach, but he also was an athlete. So he was still practicing at the same time. That's where he got mad. He didn't scream or anything, but he did yell. He didn't throw a chair or anything like Bobby Knight, but he did yell. He's like, you know what? He's like, do you want to win or not? Because he said, you know what? Winners don't quit. He's like, winners don't quit. And he said, I'm going to tell you this one time. He said, you can take with it what you will. He's like, but when you quit, it gets easier every time. So if you quit once, it gets easier to quit next time. And then you know what? It'll get easier to quit that next time. You're going to always find an excuse. And you know what? I still remember, and this was in 1996. It is 2024. I remember where I was going into the corner in that skating rink. That skating rink has been demolished for 15 years. It's a Gold's Gym there now. But I remember where I was. I remember we were rolling. I was coasting because I'd pulled up into the race and he had pulled up alongside me when we were having this conversation. And I remember we were in corner 3 when he told me that. And every time I've wanted to quit something, and every time, I mean, it doesn't matter what it was. Like if it's work, I just want to stop working for the night because, and I could push through and just kind of finish off the night, or I could just quit and just pick it up in the morning, or, whatever it is, reorganizing the office or whatever it is. Sometimes you just got to call it a day, right? But if it's something that could be finished, if it's a job that could get done, those words, they've stuck with me. Like they haunt me almost. Like when I'm on the treadmill, unless I'm like really going to die, I don't quit because I hear Ron telling me in my head, if you quit today, it's going to be hard. It's going to be easier to quit tomorrow. And if you quit tomorrow, it's going to be even easier to quit the next day. And a good coach didn't scream it to me, but he said it with authority because he meant it. And it was true. I mean, because I'd seen this pattern with other people. When he said it, it became crystal clear to me because I'd seen this with people who were not winners on our team, who had potential, but who had not achieved to the highest level, even though they had a ton of talent. They were not they were not getting to the top of their they were not achieving to their ability. And when he said that, it kind of shook me to my core. Now, am I a super talented athlete? Absolutely not. But do I always want to give what I have? Yes. So what am I saying? I'm saying Ron was, and he's still around. I mean, this makes me really want to go just say thank you to Ron, because this is just one small example. He was a great boss because he taught me so much about business at the skating rink. He taught me about customer relations, and he was a good friend. He was just always a good person to be around. He had a mustache. He kind of looked like Tom Selleck. And he was just funny. He was like undercover funny. He would like make all these remarks that were just so funny. Like he was a great boss to be around for over 10 years. But he was a great coach because he wouldn't get on you, but he would not let you get away with things that would hurt you as an athlete. He would make sure that you were doing what you had to do to achieve your potential. And I think that's what a coach's job is. He wouldn't let you slide. And I appreciated that. So when you see these commercials about coaches and during the tournament, you see these coaches that the post-game interviews, win or lose, they're talking about their athletes. They're not talking about themselves. They're not talking about the next job. They're not talking about the coaching decisions they made, the X's and O's. They're talking about their kids. The kids need to talk about the coaches. Because maybe these 18 to 22-year-olds don't realize it today, but when they're 50, those words that these coaches have told them in those practices and those dimly lit gymnasiums on a July afternoon, when you're so far from March Madness that it's crazy that you can't see it. That's the stuff that's going to stick in their hearts for the rest of their lives. It's going to push them through a tough business deal, or maybe a tough time in their lives, a divorce, or whatever it is, just something that is really, really hard, a tough health problem in their life. But deep down, that coach is going to have taught them something earlier in life that's going to help them find that inner strength to keep on going. Coaches change lives. Absolutely, they do. Ron did that for me. So I just want to put that out there for you. Do you have a story like that? I'd love to hear about it. Please give it to me over at patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. Hope you have a great week. Let's make it an awesome one. I love you guys and hope you have an awesome one. Stay safe, be good to each other, and I'll see you real soon.